Hey, folks. Charlie, executive producer of Under the Guise of Science here. How are you? Just letting you know that I did not do a great job when recording this episode, and thus from my mistakes sound like I am inside of a tin can. Dear sweet Christopher sounds just fine as always. Just kind of ruined my audio. Hope you can still enjoy yourself, and hope you enjoy the show anyway. I don't know. Shut up. Enjoy it. Leave me alone.
I don't know what any of this shit is, and I'm fucking scared.
First, you're gonna tell me about this science stuff.
Sorry about that. What is a scientist?
You caught me like I'm experimenting with
Science.
It's like magic with electricity.
I know that. I'm not stupid. I'm smarter than you.
The smartest scientists in the entire world all agree.
Science is a liar sometimes.
Seriously, this could not seem less scientific.
Those idiots don't know anything about science.
It's science.
I believe it's pronounced science.
This is the least scientific thing I've ever seen. So I'm just experimenting with them?
You be quiet.
Thank you, scientist.
We got we're already super comfortable with it now.
Yeah. Like
just 5 in.
Yeah.
Five episodes into Under the Guise of Science.
Yeah. This is the episode where we think we know what we're doing.
Yep. This is the one where we start off extremely confident, and when we look back on it an hour later, say, boy, howdy we. Did we put the horse before the carriage?
Yeah. We still don't know Dick.
Yeah. So, any corrections?
Yes, yeah, good point. So speaking of we don't know Dick, last week there was, I said that it was a female that came up with a particular idea, but that's only because I read the name Jamie, and I apologize to the male named Jamie. I forget his last name already, but he came up with the dark fluid idea, so it was, don't want to. Other than that, I mean, We're going to say stupid shit from time to time, and, you can let us know if we say something stupid. If it's a big deal, we'll make a correction. If it's not a big deal, we're probably not going to make a correction. I'm just going to, say up front now, I'm going to fuck up some numbers. We're going to fuck up some facts, but, it should be, it's all about the story and the ideas, I guess.
Yeah, it's not never let the truth get in the way of a good story. They always say, right?
We're big picture guys, We're not in the weeds.
We called Danny Glover Donald Glover.
Yes. Yep.
I think the second episode.
Right along, you said Donald Glover. I was like, yep, that's him. No, it was
Danny. The guy from Community, Childish Gambino himself.
Yeah. Alongside Mel Gibson.
I'd still watch that movie.
Yeah,
dude's funny as shit.
Yeah.
Donald Glover.
Yeah. Hope Donald Glover's listening right now. We love you.
Yeah. So, like a good scientist that I am, went out to do some research in the field. Lauren and I went to the Museum of Natural History, and on the way in, so we did. There's the at the Hayden Planetarium. There's like a half-hour thing about the other planets in the our solar system. I forget exactly what it was called, but it was neat. It was really cool. And on the way in, Lauren was asking me questions about stuff, and I was able to pretty succinctly explain to her how stars and planets form, and how it's just essentially just stuff with more mass just kind of drags in smaller stuff, and then that kind of builds up, and everything's hot and burning and spinning. And like one or two other things, and then after the thing, she was like, I wanted to turn to you 3 times during the thing. I was like, holy shit, you said that on the way in. I was like, fuck, yes, I did.
Yeah. Because
see?
We are the guys.
I'm learning.
The guys of science.
But they had this cool thing. it's like a full square that takes up like most of the perimeter of the room, and it's the size of things with the zeros in front of or in back of to the 10th power or whatever.
Right.
And just to give you an idea of scale of everything in that, and it takes you all the way around to like the vastness of the known universe on one end, and on the other end it's like, I guess, neutrons and gluons and stuff all the way on the other end of the spectrum. But what was neat is like there's like, of the last 5 on the small ones, on the small end, like the 3 before the end are no observed matter at this scale.
Wow.
Like, so there's like a whole chunk of however small that is in a row of, yeah, we've never seen anything that falls into this size. But then there's 2 things at the end that are smaller than that. So it just seemed like, yeah, like they don't have like slightly bigger ones.
Yeah, the universe
of the stuff at the bottom
skips that for some reason. Yeah, supply and demand. No one wants those 3.
They started making them early, but they bring them back every year, like the McRib.
I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, just a complete guess, but maybe like stuff that falls into that range is not stable and breaks down into other things, and it's, you know, things that are a little bit bigger maybe have some kind of longer lifespan. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was going the direction of possibly it's just based on equipment and technology and stuff that we current have. Maybe there is stuff at that size, but we have no way to actually observe it.
Oh yeah, maybe there's like it's a particular wavelength that our scanners don't pick up or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the first half hour we were there, and then it's sharks and dinosaurs and fucking rocks and shit.
Yeah. Other cool
I would
nerd
definitely
stuff.
like
all the
right?
all the things that you had to pretend you didn't like as a teenager, but now that you're married, you can be like, yeah, I love this shit. She's not leaving.
Yeah. I was thinking it'd be really funny to do like for the show, for content, like you and I go there as a field trip and just record the whole thing and then chop together like a 5-minute segment of us being dicks.
That'd be amazing
at the museum.
Yeah,
it'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
And then it immediately goes to, just because of the type of dicks we are, it would be really funny to dress like the people that volunteer there, that are there to like explain stuff to people. And then just people walk in and we just start like making up nonsense.
like undercut almost. Like, don't listen to that tour. You 3 come with me and just like take a side.
We get you to.
Yeah.
You want the good tour?
Right.
We got that good tour over on this side of it.
This is the VIP. We're going to show you things they don't show you. You're gonna...
This is the adult museum tour, so we can say whatever the hell we want.
You can drink if you want. You can say whatever the hell we
Do any of these fuckers?
Always comes back to that.
Yeah, got there early this week.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else is there? Anything funny else in the museum? No, I think that's probably the extent of the fun stuff. It's neat. I would definitely go back to the museum again.
No, that's
really
pretty
cool
awesome.
shit. Yeah, there's so much shit. Like we were there probably like 6 hours at this point, and we're just like, fuck, we still got these 3 rooms left to do. We gotta go to these. Like there was a lot of cool shit on like actual light wavelength and how it reflects and refracts off of rocks and stuff like that to give it. Yeah, it was stuff that had I not been tired of walking around for 6 hours, I probably would have spent a little bit more time in there. Then after that, we went and saw Lord of the Rings at Radio City Music Hall with the full film score being performed by a 200-plus piece orchestra.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, how did the Lord of the Rings... I was picturing the Lord of the Rings play.
Yeah.
All right, that makes more sense.
Yeah. It was really cool, and I know when I hear the music that there's a ton of like choral vocals, like a lot of
like
dudes going like, hey, oh,
right,
hey, oh, like that shit.
Yeah.
But that was like,
wait, how's it go?
It was the entire length of the stage, 5 people deep. Like that's how many people were on stage doing that stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's fun watching that movie with a bunch of people who've seen it a billion times.
Yeah,
and just like, because there's laughs at weird spots. Like, there's not necessarily something funny. Like, first of all, anytime Boromir says anything, like everybody just laughs, which I didn't get all of it. But I mean, obviously, the whole place, the biggest round of applause was Boromir's. One does not simply, like
the infamous meme.
Yeah, there was like 2 or 3 other. It's like, all right, I've seen that meme as well, and people lost their minds for that shit.
Yeah.
And I also remembered that I saw that movie the first time with you in the theater, I believe, with a bunch of us.
The first one?
Yeah.
Or was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
That was like 2001-ish, maybe. Yeah.
A long time ago.
It was neat.
That was always a good time.
I had no idea that I was going to be getting, it's something about the music, but it made everything, it ratcheted up, like, all the emotion in every single thing. Like, I've watched that movie, like, calloused for years now at, like, any of the emotional spots, and, like, oh, yeah, it's part of the movie, but, like, anytime that, like, the soprano singer does the really, like, high, like, sad-sounding stuff, like, tears every single time she sang. Like, and then, like, right after the Gandalf gets pulled down by the Balrog, and, like, the super sad scene right after that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, seconds before that, I grabbed Lauren's arm, and I was like, oh, fuck, she's gonna sing again, and this one's gonna be bad. And, like, all the hobbits are crying and sad and everything, and she's just hitting... I was just like... Like, yeah. I haven't made a noise like that. And the only other time I've ever made that noise in a movie theater in public was at the end of Endgame. Spoiler alerts. Fucking when Pepper's telling Tony it's okay. You can let go. Jesus, you can rest now. Like, yeah, like I remember in the movie at the time just the biggest sob.
I watched that movie. Gosh. So we went to the theaters, and it was me and my family. So it's 5 of us, my sister and her kids. So, like, it was a whole crew of us. And we got there a little bit late, and it was, still a popular movie and everything. So we had to sit towards the front, and we had to split up a little bit. So it was like, just to one side, but there was like 3, 3, and 3 kind of. So I had to sit in one of the front rows by myself next to another dude that was, middle-aged or however old he was. And the entire time, the 2 of us are both sitting there trying not to make eye contact with each other, but also, like, trying not to cry and acting like like doing a whole bunch of that kind of, like, it was the most awkward. No, I'm fine.
It's
movie.
It's very dusty.
Not even real.
It's very dusty in this theater.
Yeah, like you're crying over a fucking wizard. But getting back to the music, guys, like, how do you find out you have a talent for like, how do you end up in that profession?
Yeah, like, how do you how do you know that it's like, thank God somebody came along and needed background music for orcs.
Yeah, like growing up, his mom was like, "You're a wonderful singer, but you don't know any of the words. What's wrong?" And then, yeah, this fake language came along. Perfect. Got a grunt.
And he just do singing warm ups. Ah, ooh, oh, oh, ah, ooh, ah.
I don't know if this project's going to work for you, but my friend is Mr. Peter Jackson may have something. Yeah.
But yeah, and it's also neat. This is the first time I've watched any of the movies after watching Rings of Power.
Okay, I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's nice. It gives, like, watching it again, just kind of like, oh fuck, right, oh shit. Like, it's not a lot, but you know, it's you've seen the movie enough times to know that as what you can piece together from watching it.
I read the Silmarillion, or however you pronounce that. So is it? I think it's like one of the stories from that, if I'm not mistaken, because that book is like, it's dense and it's almost like the Bible in the way that it kind of like hits the highlights of the things that happen. So I thought they kind of like pulled one of the little stories out of that and fleshed it out.
What's even crazier is that they were able to make that show without actually acquiring the rights to the Silmarillion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is how do you make the show without getting the rights to the source material?
Yeah,
but I guess like there's enough stuff that gets said, I guess, in like the Lord of the Rings movies or any of the other incarnations of it, that they were able to use that stuff, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, they had to avoid using specific words because they only appear in that book.
Got it.
I think was the crux of that.
Freaking written by lawyers.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Hey, let him use the book, huh? Hey, come on. What are we doing? So speaking of all this stuff that's not real.
Yeah, very good. Actually, some of the shit that you were saying that about the museum stuff ties into some of the things we're going to talk about. But yes,
cool.
Yeah, like we left off last time talking about how everything really isn't real. Our brains only give us a little bit of the picture, and I mean, you can even deeper than that. We as we start unwrapping things, like as things start to get more down to that quantum layer, to that 10 to the negative whatever you were looking at, like it's really funny down there. It's well, we'll get there, but it's all this stuff is very confusing.
Is it funny ha ha or funny ho ho?
Yeah.
Down at the quantum level.
I don't think either. I think funny like you are just lying to me, and just say you don't know, scientist. Just say you don't know. But the crazy shit is, like, as ridiculous as this stuff starts to get, like, it's real. There's experimental data behind it. Like, remember you asked me last week about antimatter, if it's still theoretical or if it's like, I went and looked up a little bit about it. And not only is it real, but a PET scan, where the things that they use to scan for cancer, the P is for positron, and a positron is an anti-electron. So we actually use antimatter in medical equipment. Like it's actually,
holy shit,
yeah, harnessed, and I don't know how they do it, that it keeps from annihilating. That's a whole different. This is new ground for me, but yeah, we apparently have a handle on antimatter. So,
how many people did they kill by blowing them up with positrons? Before they realized that? Yeah.
Those are the things that don't make Science fucking magazine. They get buried.
It's a fantastic publication, by the way.
It is.
And I stand by it.
Premiere. Yeah. But all right, so just to kind of to start off, you know, E equals MC squared, and we talked about that. That's just energy equals matter sped up to a particular constant. And the reason why the reason why us scientists say a particular constant is because it's a proportion. Basically, the more mass you increase, the more energy proportionally will increase. It's at the same rate. It's always multiplied by the speed of light squared. There's another rule in the quantum world, where it starts to get very small. I think it's Planck's theory or something like that. It's something to do with Planck because his name is in it too. But it's E equals h lambda. And in this case, h is the constant. It's called Planck's constant. And lambda is the wavelength of whatever particle we're talking about. So again, energy equals the wavelength multiplied by this constant. So, adjust the wavelength, you adjust the energy proportionally. So now the connecting thing about the two of these, you take the E out because they're both equal to energy. So that means mc squared equals h lambda. So that means mass multiplied by this constant equals the wavelengths of particles multiplied by this other constant. There's a relationship there. So what that's saying...
Say that mass sentence again. The mass wavelengths one, that one.
Yeah, so mc squared is mass multiplied by the constant c squared equals h lambda, which is the wavelength of the particle or whatever thing we're talking about multiplied by that other constant. So mass equals this wavelength. So there's a relationship between the wavelength of different particles that, in the standard model of particle physics, blah, blah, blah. It's just saying that all matter is a specific wavelength of various subatomic particles. There's the relationship between the two of those. So, and that's where things really start to get confusing. So, like we were talking about, so that's just setting the stage. So going back to light coming from the sun, it's not light coming from the sun. The sun is emitting a fuck ton of electromagnetic radiation, all different wavelengths, all different frequencies, just all this, X-rays, microwaves, gamma rays, all of this stuff is coming out from the sun based on
famous rays.
Barbecue. Yeah. Funny, that's where it originates. It's the fifth element. They all come towards our eyeball, but we can only pick up on a certain number of them. Electromagnetic radiation is transmitted through a particle called a photon. And I'm sure you've heard photon before. That's just light. But everything on that spectrum, everything that's on the electromagnetic radiation spectrum is communicated by a photon of some frequency and some, amplitude. Like that's how big the wave goes up and down. And frequency is like how fast it goes.
Gotcha.
So things like radio waves are photons, but it's just at a lower frequency or amplitude. Like AM, FM radio, you got your amplitude modified, and FM is the frequency. So it's the same thing. You're tuning into a specific frequency to pick up that photon as it comes to your antenna. Those photons at that frequency can pass through shit. That's why you can get it inside your house and stuff like that. Some photons can't. That's why they cast a shadow, because there's certain wavelengths of photons that actually interact with matter more. Those are the things that we can see typically. Also, microwave do that because they cook meat, so you can't see them, but it's a frequency that's hitting matter and causing everything, all the particles to do stuff and cook, blah blah blah. So, any questions?
So far? Yes, yeah. So far. So I feel like you almost casually glazed over, or you might be building towards this point of some stuff has a frequency that can pass through solids, and then other things can't. That's why I cast a shadow. And it's like, So it's still wavelengths of stuff.
Yep. It's still a photon. It's still like an X-ray photon. It's the same. It's the same force. It's the force. The four fundamental forces. One of them is electromagnetic radiation, and that force is communicated by a photon. That's the name of the particle that communicates that force. But there's different frequencies of it that go from radio waves all the way up to gamma rays. But it's the same thing. It's just like E equals H lambda, how much energy is in this thing. That's why gamma rays are so crazy energetic. They're bad for you. Versus radio waves, they're not that energetic. They pass through us all the time, and we're okay. So it's just kind of all of this talking around is just to illustrate that the force communicator, depending on how energetic it is, does different things. So there's a specific frequency. Yeah. But I mean, and this is magnetism too. Like all that shit we can't see. It's the same type of particle being passed between magnets that attract them together. It's not visible, and I think in the case of magnets, it's virtual particles kind of popping in and out of existence, which is a whole other thing that we hopefully will talk about.
Holy shit! Really?
Oh God, yeah.
They think magnets are just stuff popping in and out of existence. Holy
kind
shit!
Of, yeah, it's and
just
that
basic shit you got
attraction
on your refrigerator is
Yeah.
doing the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah. Basically.
The thing that makes it work pops in and out of existence
Yep.
consistently. Fucking shit, that's
Wait till
crazy.
you hear what's inside a proton. We'll get there. But so all I'm trying to point out is that there's a specific frequency that interacts with our retina specifically. There must be some of these, some frequencies that may interact, but that we don't care about, like infrared and ultraviolet, which, you have the rainbow red through violet. They're the next colors off to either side. So they're right there. They're just slightly different, but we don't see them.
No shit.
Yeah. And the guy who figured it out, he had a prism, and the light from the window came through the prism, and he had a thermometer in each of the colors because he was trying to figure out if different colors are different temperatures, and his control thermometer was off just the side to the left of red, and that one got the hottest. So that's how we figured out that infrared is a thing. It's just below red, but it's not visible to the naked eye.
Wow.
Yeah, on accident. Same shit. And yeah, so they were like, oh, if there's that, then maybe there's one on the violet side, and that's ultraviolet. So.
And is that ultraviolet is that's UV rays?
Yes.
So the bad parts of sun.
Yeah, the way you get the sunburn.
Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually
so
starting to get more high energy too as you start to go up that side. The blue shift, like think of red shift as lower energy, stretched out, lazy waves. We talked about that. And so that's the radio wave side of things. And then on the ultraviolet, that's where you start to head towards gamma, like as it starts to get more energetic.
So then just to add to the list of holy shit, it's amazing that we're even alive at all. Like, just that, I guess that all the color waves that we're able to see and interact with are the ones that are in the range where it doesn't hurt you, just slightly outside of that, like with ultraviolet or
infrared, yeah,
whatever the other one was. Yeah, infrared. Like, those can both hurt you, right? The infrared you said can burn.
Yeah, that's where you get sunburn. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
fuck,
that's crazy.
But I don't know, it may interact with our retina because it clearly interacts with our skin, like other colors do, other lights do. But our brain doesn't care about that. It only cares about the specific wavelength that reflects off things that are either threats to our survival or potentially, food or something like that. So the crazy brain, the brain's an insane survival machine, and I think that's why things are starting to get crazy in some of the more technologically advanced countries, just because it's so good at solving problems, and we've solved a bunch of problems that it looks for new threats, I guess, and tries to solve those problems as well. So things are starting to get...
Like you explained to a T, that is the explanation of why I'm in therapy. It's like, no, there's got to be a problem somewhere here.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's think about what all the problems that could possibly happen are.
Right.
And then really focus on how we'd have to react to those.
And that's why like nobody that's starving is getting in fights with their mom over text about, who's allowed to come to Thanksgiving or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. It's keeping the brain occupied.
Yeah. Well,
survival is occupying your brain, and then when it becomes too easy, it just creates...
It's built for threats.
Creates more craziness.
I mean, and here's something that's like a tangent, not really what we're talking about, but gossip is actually built into us for survival, because the people that gossip were the people that went, hey, don't go down there. There's a bear. And went, oh shit, there's a bear? Did you hear there's a bear? And so those people didn't go down and get eaten by the bear. And the people that didn't gossip were like, fuck, I'm listening. Yeah. They met the bear and didn't pass on their genes. So it's kind of like we're predisposed to gossip. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Now all right. Then, reality TV makes sense.
Right.
Because
our brains need it. It's craving it all.
Yeah.
It's like we have the pathways for it. We don't have any traffic on it. So we need Jersey Housewives.
Yeah, any one of those, any housewife. I guess anything on Bravo. Just every show on the Bravo network.
It's sating our whatever need that is, but
an exhausting one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so exhausting.
But just getting back to everything not being real. So all of that was just to set up that the colors that we see are just different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. They're not absolute. They're the brain's interpretation of these specific wavelengths hitting our retina, and then it goes into our brain, and whatever processes happen. So like, I'm looking at your hat, I'm seeing the brim and it's reddish orange, or whatever it's on that end of things. If you were to see through my eyes, like maybe you would look at that and go, that's what you call red, because I call that green. And like, imagine it's flip-flopped where we don't actually see the same colors, but even though you would see the stop sign as green if you were looking through my eyes, we both call it red because that's what we're used to calling red, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, the wavelength was already there. The label came after. And whether or not we interpret that wavelength the same way and have the same experience, we'll never know. You know what I mean?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Like, because even if there was some way to, put some type of recording device into your brain, like, technically, isn't that the whole outcome being affected by the observer kind of thing? Like, isn't the computer in there potentially observing and altering the results?
It could. I mean, or it could be that the computer is going to say, this is red, and you're going to look at that and you're like, yes, I agree, even though we're not seeing the same shade. You still call that shade red no matter what, because that's been paired for you.
Oh, so that's like, so culturally we program into children, or you program it into you right away, like,
right.
Just that's red, that's red, that's red.
Yeah, so even
and
though
maybe
all the children aren't seeing the same shade, you're saying this object, which like a stop sign is always going to be this shade, So even though 20 of you might be seeing 20 different shades, you're all going to call it red. And that shade will be red to you. So we'll always be able to say, that's red. Yes, I agree that's red, even though we're seeing a different shade. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, man. Yeah. No. Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
That's insane.
So, yeah, color isn't necessarily, it's not like, color is not a fundamental thing. That's just something that emerges, and it's a label for a wavelength that we're able to see.
Jesus, how the fuck does anything get done?
I guess people don't
ever
worry about that, and they're just like, oh, I'm gonna pick up my kids or whatever.
Oh, shit.
Boss is a dick. Whatever.
And then, so at the same, I guess possibly in the same vein, so everything is mostly nothing.
Yep. Yeah, as you get real small, most stuff is
So
empty space.
There should be enough empty space if you get small enough that you should just be able to pass through solids.
Yeah. And there are some things that do. There's something called a neutrino, which is a fundamental particle, very, very little mass. It goes near the speed of light, not quite at the speed, because as things hit the speed of light, they can't have mass. That's a whole, like, photons are massless particles. But the neutrinos, there's a station in the South Pole to measure them, to actually try to capture them, because they interfere with certain things. Like when you get them lower energy, you just need a really big like wall, basically, for them to pass. Because if you got like a foot wide iron wall, they'll pass through that no problem. What they use is the fucking Earth, and they get the neutrinos that pass through the Earth and catch them at the South Pole in like a big ice flow to slow them down, and that's where they pick up. Like, there's like 1 trillion passing through you a second, constantly coming from the sun, and they don't interact.
Shit.
Yeah, they're like ghost particles. They pass through and don't do anything. So you need a filter the size of the sun to catch one once in a while, because it's like random that they interact.
Now, but you're aren't they're catching neutrinos by when it passes through the Earth?
Yeah. So like the odds of, let me take things back a minute. So we were talking about particles. Particles aren't really like a little ball like you would think of. Particles are quantum field theory is it's the dominant idea of all the little stuff right now. There's a bunch of fields everywhere in space. All a field is a potential number value in infinite points, getting microscopic. And the fields are things like quarks, electron. There's a quark field, an electron field, a photon field, a gluon field, all those particles. If at any point in that field, normally like in the vacuum of space, the energy value for the field is 0. But where there's stuff, the energy value spikes up and stays up. And that's what we are. We're just a whole shit ton of quark fields and electron fields and gluon fields and neutrino fields and all that stuff that have a consistently high enough energy that they all interact with each other and make things. But yeah, when you get down to it, there's not a lot there. And even out in space, where there is nothing and those fields are 0, they don't stay 0. They kind of fluctuate, and they get a little bit higher than 0 and back down. And those are virtual particles. So there's all the time virtual particles popping into space, smashing into its antimatter virtual pair, and annihilating itself. So it's like this invisible froth.
It's a solid band name, by the way. So virtual particles, so particles that aren't actually particles?
Yeah.
Or aren't really particles?
Yeah, because they don't stick around long enough to actually impact anything. And it's just like on the off chance that one of them has enough energy to stay around, it might, but like the probability of that happening is minuscule. Like you'd have to wait for a very, very long time for that to actually happen. But that brings me back to what I was saying about neutrinos. So neutrinos, again, they're a particle, but it's just this energy moving through the neutrino field, right? And it's a wavelength that does this. There's a probability, that's what the wavelength is. There's a probability that the particle is in one place or another at any given time. It's not like the closer you get to things, they're never 100% in a spot until you actually measure it, and that gets into the quantum field collapse or whatever. But there's a probability of these neutrinos interacting with something. It's a very low probability. For the most part, that field just passes through other fields, has no interaction at all. But there's a 1 in however many chance of it interacting with something. So you need enough things to increase the property or increase the probability of that interaction. So to get a lot of things, we use the planet. So as the neutrinos pass through this gigantic ball of rock, because it's such a small probability of it interacting with any one thing, if it passes through enough things, eventually one of them is going to interact and we're going to be able to measure it. So that's what they do at this particular lab where they measure neutrinos.
So they're just taking neutrino hits and using the Earth as a bong to filter it out.
I love it. Yeah. And this shit it is mind melty. I suggest, I definitely suggest smoking something before you try to get into this, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, it really doesn't. There's like the fact that when you get small enough, it's not 100% something there. That it's, well, the electron there's a 60% chance that it's in this energy value, 40% chance that it's in this energy value. But when you do the math, or when the scientists do the math, they keep that probability in it, and it works. So it's not like you need one. It's up. We were wrong. It was the 40% side. No, it's still quantum mechanics or whatever work with this probability. It's fucking weird, but it's right. It's why we have cell phones, and why how the transistor was able to be invented in the first place, by understanding all this stuff. So it's not like this is all bullshit. Like, we use this in everyday life.
Yeah, that's how all the shit. That's how all the shit we use works.
Yeah.
Like, so how does like, to quote the Louis C.K. bit, where they're trying to where people are mad that they can't get a video on their phone right away, and it's a minute. Would you give it a second? It's going to space. Yeah, just give it a second. But like, so what is actually going to space in that? It's the information, but in what medium is that information?
In a photon packet.
So we can convert shit into photons.
Yeah.
And then it sends.
Well, first, that's getting on the technology side. And ladies and gentlemen, I am actually qualified to talk about technology. This is my day job. So all this other shit I might be wrong about, but this I know. Computers convert human language, or actual application code, into machine code. Uh-huh. So it turns it from words into ones and zeros. So the light going out is almost like, what the fuck is that dot and dash? What's that called? Morse code. So
Morse code?
Yeah. Thank you. So the photons send out, it's either a 1 or a 0, right? So all of that shit, that's what bytes per second and gigabytes per second and all that, because 1 or 1 0 is a bit. 8 of those together is a byte. So depending on how much speed you have, that's how many of those 1s and 0s it can send out per second. So that's how we get. But it gets sent out, bounced back to your other phone. That phone converts it back from machine code into human code, and then there's your picture of balls or whatever. Whatever you Googled.
A man named Barry sitting on the edge of his bed for all the world to see. The savior of quarantine.
Right. The real time man of the year of 2020.
Yeah, right. So it's teleporting information.
In a way, yeah.
It's
at the speed of light.
Man. And how close are they to doing teleporters? Pretty close or not really?
Not really.
Nah.
No. I mean, there's a thing called quantum tunneling, but that's on such a small level, and it's hit or miss. Like, I think if we were to try to build a teleporter with the best of our understanding now, it would kind of be like, well, there's a 30% chance you'll make it, but a 70% chance you'll be sliced and diced into cork gluon plasma. So might not be worth the ride.
And then I guess with shrinking shit, like Ant-Man technology, for lack of a better word, like the way that fake science works is they're shrinking down the subatomic particles or the spaces in between the particles, I think is how that works. Or
I guess.
Is that how it...
I think so. But yeah, the PIM particle somehow it decreases the space between them to get it smaller.
Alrighty.
But
and that's weird. Like even just as a thought exercise. Sound real pretentious to say that. It's crazy that just shrinking the particles or the space between them, an idea would make the entire thing shrink.
Yeah, and especially proportionally too. Like perfectly.
Yeah.
Like there's no kind of collapse or anything like that.
And a big concern with that would obviously be like crushing the bond that holds it.
And I would worry that
I guess it's...
Go ahead.
It's turning it in. It's like turning a person into a black hole almost.
Yeah, and I was going to say with the density, I would even wonder if if all the molecules that make up the things in your lungs get too dense. Like, can you still breathe oxygen? And can you still then, oxygen does whatever. I'm less fluent in biology, but I know it goes into your lungs and connects with your blood cells and is transported around the body, and then waste is brought back and all that. Would that chemistry still work without the electrons being at, like, how do you turn O2 into CO2 when you got a smaller electron orbit? I don't know if that'll fuck
and not
things
only
up.
like what about like even just trying to breathe at all? Like your body was designed to handle oxygen at a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's definitely bigger than it was when you were breathing it in at your regular size.
Yeah.
So maybe it just clogs your arteries up immediately. It's just like load it up with oxygen balls.
Yeah. You know what?
Jams up the lungs.
Ant-Man? Bullshit. Calling it now.
I don't even need to see the third one to know it's bullshit.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think it's sad, but if you think about all the other, like Spider-Man, he got bit by a radioactive spider and got superpowers. In the real world, that would be cancer. Hulk, gamma ray blast. In the real world, that would be either no skin or cancer. Captain America, some super, whatever the fuck. What would they give him? Super soldier serum.
Super soldier serum.
Yeah. Most likely cancer. Most likely. Iron Man's the only believable one. And he had a hole in his chest. He had a hole in his... He had an electromagnet keeping shards out of his heart. Yeah. And he's the most believable one. Yep. Or actually, it might be Hawkeye. He just practice the bow and arrow a whole bunch.
Yeah. he just did what people from every country every year do
Yeah, I
in
know
hopes to
hunters.
compete in the Olympics.
I know hunters that do that.
People do that just to eat.
Right. All right. Hawkeye. So
I like that they. No, go ahead. Yeah.
No. Say something funny before I get, because I'm gonna get weird.
All right. No, just that they acknowledged how ridiculous Hawkeye is fighting aliens.
Yeah. But none of this makes any sense. I have a bow and arrow. Just get out there.
It was in Age of Ultron, right?
Yes. Yeah. Word up.
And before we get off comic book stuff, it's a shame Captain America wasn't real. Just to hear Ted Koppel tell a story about him. And today I decorated super soldiers serum Captain America. Well, that's for the, I don't know, 5 people that know who Ted Koppel even is anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of them. I'm with you.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, make it weird. What do you got?
All right. We only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm glossing over quantum field theory by and large, just except for now that whole, the energy of quantum fields becomes particles. There's a whole bunch of other shit like the Higgs particle that we got to talk about, and other things that grant mass and blah blah blah.
You're gonna do like how it's made does. Like they'll be making a car and they'll show you how they put the whole thing together, and then they do like a huge gloss over, and then the engine is put in. It's
right.
like, well, hold on, how did
how do you make that shit?
Yeah.
Right. That's the important part too.
Yeah. I have boxes already.
Right. I know
none of them can drive. That's why I'm watching.
Right. Yeah, I know how to bolt the wheels on. That's change the tire. Yeah. Yeah. But okay, so skipping over that, just because I opened, or we said it earlier, the inside of a proton. I don't understand the inside of a proton, so I'm going to do my best here. But so the inside of the nucleus in general, the protons and the neutrons, they're made up of quarks, which we said was a field that, at a subatomic level. There's a bunch, I think there's like 6 different types of quarks in total, but the 2 that we see the most are called up and down. Up or positive, down or negative. So when 2 ups and a down get together, that makes a proton. When 2 downs and an up get together, that makes a neutron. So that's all you really need to know about that.
Now, if 2 ups and 2 downs, and then 2 lefts and 2 rights all get together, and then a couple of BAs, do you get 99 lives in Contra?
Select start, right? You gotta do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if it's 2 players, yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you're being a gentleman.
BA start if it's 1 player. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Contra code reference, excellent.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
nerding it up.
Yeah. The 3 quarks though are tiny. The mass of the 3 quarks put together is about 1% of the mass of a proton. The other 99% is not fucking real. So what I mean by that is there's gluons. The gluons are the force carrying particles that exchange the strong nuclear force between the quarks and holds them together. That's passed back and forth. That still doesn't equal the full weight of a proton or the full mass of a proton. It turns out, like, as they did these experiments where they just shot shit at protons at different energies to see what would happen. And there was a thought that if protons were made of one thing, they would kind of like clump like 2 balls of jelly hitting into each other. Or if they were made of something else, they would bounce off in different directions. So they got really good at this and kept shooting shit in, and it does look like it bounces off for different directions, and that's how they identified the quarks as being what they are. But as they zoomed in even more, there's another quark called the top quark. There's a top and a bottom quark that different flavors, and then there's a charmed quark and a strange quark. Physicists just kind of like, I don't know what they're thinking, but a ton of the mass in a proton are from these other types of quarks that pop in and out of existence. They're not real, they're virtual, they pop in and they pop out. There's virtual gluons being exchanged between them. So most of the mass in the proton is made up of imaginary shit popping in and out of space that don't stick around, while the three quarks are there that actually hold it down. So it's kind of like if you had a balloon with three rocks in it, and the three rocks were tied together, but the balloon somehow weighed like 50 pounds, even though the three rocks together were only like a couple pounds. And all the other shit in there was just like invisible gas that came in, diffused, disappeared. But like it's so weird.
So, so in that analogy, like they show up, is diffusing like winking out of existence then?
They kind of like, they do wink out of existence, but they show up for a little while and do some kind of attraction and create, and then wink out of existence and kind of, or like annihilate each other. If you get like I think there's the antimatter version of a quark that also pops in within the boundaries of the nucleus and smash into the other version of the quark.
And where do they go?
Wherever they came from, which is, I don't know.
Even that, like, it's, are they returning to the place from whence they came, or just they're going to a third plane of existence? Like they start in one thing, pop into this reality real quick, and then go somewhere else into a third place.
I think it's just kind of like there's laws of conservation, again, just kind of mathematical trends that we've noticed, but it's almost like the universe can't create new energy. It has to come from somewhere. So these quarks, again, mass and energy are the same thing at different vibrations. So even these virtual particles that pop into existence, matter and antimatter alike, they kind of take some of the energy out of the universe to become physical things for however long, nanoseconds, whatever it is, and then annihilate, and the energy goes back into the universe. So it kind of like gets around the laws of conservation in that way.
Man, fucking loophole finding motherfuckers.
Yeah. No, space is weird. Space is weird. There is no fucking true vacuum. Like all the fields that I said, they're usually close to zero as far as their energy state goes, except the Higgs field. The Higgs field is the only one that its low rest is a non-zero. Like, I don't know what the actual number is, but it's non-zero. So out in space, the Higgs is always there. There's always some kind of energy from the Higgs. And it's only when it interacts with certain particles, not photons. Photons pass through, no problem. Things like a quark or things that actually produce mass. The Higgs slows it down. It's almost like everything would move at the speed of light if it wasn't for the Higgs field that interacts with certain things, slows them down, and that's actually where mass comes from the Higgs interfering with other stuff and slowing it down to the point that it can group stuff together and other fundamental forces can interact.
So gravity is kind of Higgs fields?
Well, I guess
because gravity comes...
The Higgs lends to gravity just because the Higgs creates mass, and then when you have enough mass, it warps space-time, and that causes gravity. So, I mean, it's a chain of things. With no Higgs, there's no stuff. With no stuff, there's no gravity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that the Higgs boson? Is that the God particle?
Yep. So yeah, the Higgs boson was just they found it in the large. It was predicted that when they smashed stuff together, this thing would show up. And when they found it, it meant yes, it's real. So that means the Higgs field is real. So it's just kind of that's the God particle. That's what it does. But it's more about the field that does it.
Now, so what are they doing? Like, are they just at the Large Hadron Collider? Like, they found the thing that they were looking for. Like, it wasn't like this is the only thing this machine was made for. Like,
No.
They're
looking for
like
supersymmetry. They're looking for anything related to dark matter, any kind of particles that would come at it. So they're constantly trying to power the thing up so that they can smash it together even harder. And that way, the more energy you produce from banging two protons together, the more stuff could happen.
How do you figure that thing out?
I don't know.
That's like, how do you even think of that?
You know what we need to do?
We got to slam the tiniest bits of shit into each other as hard as we possibly fucking can, and then we got to figure out ways to make it faster. Like, it's slightly better Jackass.
Yeah. There was someone in their kitchen. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, it's just them. The only thing, as far as we know, they're not doing shit in their underwear in the Large Hadron Collider and running around naked.
Oh yeah,
but who knows? They could be doing that too.
Yeah, we don't know what the hell goes on there. It's underground. Or it might have been a guy or a person trying to figure out what the hell is inside one of these protons. I can't get inside. And he's in his kitchen. He's making breakfast. He's mad. He drops an egg. And he's like, "That's it. We got to smash it."
Looks at the egg on the ground. He's like, "Oh, no, hold on. And then,
Eureka.
Frames it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There it is. It's perfect. It all makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So this reminded me, quick tangential back to the beginning. Museums are pretty much just, hey, so we got a bunch of shit in one place.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to come look at it.
This has
some of it has something to do with it, and some of it don't.
This has an ocean theme because it's anything in the ocean. Yeah. There's a plastic 6-pack ring, and there's
so there's like a whole in the room that has like the big blue whale on the ceiling.
Oh, it's still there? Oh, cool. I haven't been there since the 80s.
Still doing it.
Thanks.
Yeah. But in that room, there is... Oh, shit, where was I going with it? Oh, yeah, there's like so many fish on the wall. And there's a bunch of fish that have other animals' names as the part you say before fish. Like dogfish, lionfish, fucking monkeyfish, spiderfish. Like, there's so many fish that I'm pretty sure they ran out of animals to put in front of it. And then they're like, all right, fine. Trout.
Is there a fish?
Trout, I guess. Yeah.
Crabfish.
Yeah, this is a dolphin fish. We already have dolphins. Well, those are mammals. It's like, all right,
different.
Don't be a fucking prick. Fucking Christ. Every time we do, dolphins are mammals. Get it, bro.
Dolphin fish, yeah. They could have done better. That's lazy.
Right?
Yeah.
I think any of the ones, but like dogfish, catfish, seahorse.
Yeah.
Come on. Seahorse, sea lion. Lazy motherfuckers.
Yeah. And it's not even like, especially a what's it called? A catfish. What does that have to do with cats at all? It has a whisker. Is that what we're going with? I think it's just
it's gross whiskers.
That's it.
That is it.
Other things have whiskers.
That is it. I mean,
grandpa fish.
I don't know if they're Hey, Grandpa Fish. It's what Abe Vigoda's grandchildren called him. Right? Look at me doing fucking Ted Koppel and Abe Vigoda jokes.
Bringing it back.
We're playing to the kids.
I don't think this wasn't a kid episode. This was an adult episode. I think we established that at the beginning. This episode got weird.
It definitely did. But fun nonetheless.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, we're at almost an hour and 5 again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Good shit. Good shit. So yeah, we definitely need to go to the museum.
Yes.
I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It would be funny to be like, kids, I'm going to the museum. Without you.
No, you stay with Mom.
Yeah. No, this is it's for work.
Yeah.
I have to go to the museum for work. But even being in the city, still just like a crazy like perspective thing. Like we were walking through Times Square at one point, right near where they like sell the Broadway tickets at the tickets place. There is, within feet of each other, people who are outright lying to you to get money from you somehow. Constantly interacting with people who they've been looking forward to and saved up a huge portion of their life to come there for that trip.
Yeah.
Like this is the trip of that person's life. And those two are just button heads all day. I brought all my money here. Good. I want all of your money here.
You know where you can spend it? Look no further. Yeah.
No, I got a sign. I'm reading things to you. Now I can hand you something. Give me money. Like that's
right.
That's so many people's job.
Yep. And that's why I'm like, I guess, cold and heartless to an extent, but like for all the years of working in Manhattan and having to walk past people that just wanted some money, like you just get to the point where you just ignore it. And it's like, I remember quick, I know we're out of time, but I was working in Jersey City. I had to go out to feed the meter every so often. On one of the trips out there was a guy, he was, polo shirt. He was an older guy, gray hair, clean shaven and everything. And he came over. He was like, I'm so sorry to do this. I got a boot on my car. I got to go pick up my daughter, blah, blah, blah. The neighborhood was notorious with booting cars. So I was like, here, I gave him $5. And I was like, here, go ahead. And, thank you so much. He needed 25 to get it off. So that was part of the way there. Thank you so much. I'll give me your address. I'll mail it to you. Nah, just keep it, blah, blah, blah. A couple days later, I'm going out to my car, feeding the meter. Same guy, same story. I was like, nah, see, you got me the last week already. You got to pick your marks better. And he was like, huh? What are you talking about? I was like, I just gave you $5. And then he just turned and walked away. And then I never saw him again. But like, yeah, like even with the good stories that get you, tugging at your heart are bullshit too. So I've learned even the good ones, I ignore them because I've been beat before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been had.
Yeah. Never again.
There was in New Orleans, first time I went, there was a couple guys that would do the same. Hey, for $10, I bet I can tell you where you got your shoes. And like, all right, cool, go ahead. You got them right on your feet.
Yeah, fuck, 10. You played the game.
Yeah, right? So the second time I went, a guy tried that line on me. And I was like, I got him right on my feet. And he just looks at me like cold and goes, man, give me a cigarette. I was like, I don't have a cigarette. He was like, it was the best comeback. It was like, I've been had. You still need to give me something.
Right, yeah. You know I gave you that line. You at least owe me a cigarette for that material.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, beans. All right. And on homeless hustling, I guess that's a good place to wrap it up. Call it quits. If you'd like to tell us any of the mistakes we made.
Oh, we made them.
We can, under the guise of science at gmail.com. Under the Guise of Science on Facebook, Under the Guise of Science on Instagram, and Guise of Science at Twitter, at Guise of Science, however the hell
at
Twitter
Science
works.
Guys on Twitter.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
the at's different than the music. You know how that bullshit goes.
Guise is Guise, like a couple of guys.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Guido way to spell guys. Like, oh, guys.
Use guys.
Hey. Yeah. Fart Barf, thank you again as always.
Yeah. Thanks, Fart Barf.
And
I'm Chris. That's Charlie. We are the Guys of Science.
That's yeah.